it's about going to court and getting an injunction if you think these provisions are going to be violated, which is fine, but subsection B says, upon determination of a court that an alleged violation is occurring or is threatened, the court shall enter such orders or judgment as are necessary to abate the violation. I really don't think we can tell a court in a statute how it's supposed to rule. I mean, obviously, if there's all the boxes are checked, the court, that's what the court should do, but I don't think we can put in a statute that that's what they have to do. It would be for an appellate court to correct them. Is that, am I like?
Oh, I read that today, and it should read that it would be requested that the court rule rather than shall.
Yeah. Okay.
I can give it a.
Okay. I'll get some other. Thank you. But
Any more questions?
Dovetailing on that, if you've got a development that let's say they violate the tree save area or cut down a tree they're not supposed to cut down, what is the sort of enforcement mechanism there?
There's a whole provision here, and it actually is quite extensive. It's not just during development, but there's inspection of the tree save areas after development, like a year or 2 years, like 1 year mark or 2 year mark. But there is provisions in here where it could be a fine and tree plantings or combination thereof. And staff has the ability to discuss the penalties with the Environmental Sustainability Board. If somebody violates it and we start talking about what's the proper remedy, we can take it to the Environmental Sustainability Board, get their recommendation and implement it.
So are we requiring them to replace damaged vegetation or trees?
Yes, if a tree dies within a year, it's in a tree save area, say construction damage, the critical root tree damaged it, we can actually require that they replace it. They'll mitigate that ratio depending on the diameter of the tree to make up that area. They require them to plant 3 to 5 trees. So yes, there is that requirement.
Okay. Let's see here. In 11.3.10, we're talking about new plantings. It says that 75% of the new trees shall be native species. Just out of curiosity, why is it 75 versus 100? I'm just wondering if we've got theoretically native trees in an area.
Let me get our consultant to answer that question. So your question is about 11.3, here it is, under B, a minimum 75% of tree plantings must be native species.
Right.
Okay, Joe.
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, under 11.3.10D, the tree planting plan must meet the following specifications and criteria. The first one is a minimum of 75% of tree plantings must be native tree species. So why 75%?
The 75% number is taken from, there is no direct mathematical formula that I'm aware of which that number derives from. However, it is sort of a compromise, I guess, from looking at a variety of different ordinances as well as understanding that ideally you would want 100% native tree species. However, in the world in which we live today, with as much non-native plantings, exotic plantings, etc., not all of those plantings are considered pest trees or invasive trees, and some of those plantings do serve a purpose and that they can thrive in the hardiness zone, and i.e. the climate in which we live, as well as for example, there's certain type of elm trees that might, elm trees are susceptible in general in North America to Dutch elm disease, and so in order to preserve elm trees, there's all sorts of different cultivars out there, and those cultivars and cultivars being a hybrid of tree species might not necessarily be native to a certain area. So wanting to give allowance for people is to have a variety and diversity and a little bit of, I guess, flair, as well as protecting the native environment. And so, in general, that 35% number comes partially from precedent and partially from a combination of different ordinances we looked at, and as well as wanting to give allowance for people to plant trees that might not necessarily be quote unquote native, but are still acceptable to be planted in the environment. And additionally, the city does have an invasive species list, so any trees that would be non-native but considered a threat should be on that invasive species list. So we want to be primarily native and natural, yet give allowance for diversity and also, different, new cultivars that are resistant to pathogens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Yes, thank you.
You got your answer, Mark, right? Anybody have any other questions for
I
Shelley?
did have one, I guess,
Welcome.
really more of a comment. For the payment in lieu,
Yes.
I know we've kind of talked about this in other contexts. My personal preference would be I'd rather have the trees versus the cash. And I know there's some options there for tree banking in like city parks and stuff. It just seemed like I would not want us to get into a situation where we're basically banking cash instead of banking trees, so that we end, like, it seems like if the point of the ordinance is to ensure that the trees get planted, we should just go ahead and make sure that they get planted as the development is occurring, rather than kind of collecting, because I feel like that it will be much easier for developers to simply cut us a check for whatever the fee ends up being. So we'll kind of end up having to figure it out anyway, so we might as well just kind of take care of it on the front end. If you kind of see where I'm going with this.
So, the question, so as far as off-site mitigation, I just want to confirm, you're saying you're okay if they are planting trees in the park or on another side, you just don't like it in payment in lieu of.
Right.
Although, okay, so that money that comes in would go into the account specifically for either purchase property to preserve a nice canopy of trees, or use that money. I know the few times we've gotten in lieu fees, the city has used it to replace the loss of large trees within our public park. Long Beach Park lost 3 great big trees, and monies that were paid were used to go buy large trees, costly trees, to be replaced in that park. So this wouldn't be money that we're just storing, it would need to be used for that purpose of either tree preservation and so forth. But again, this is your ordinance. You don't want to allow the ability to.
Do we have discretion? I mean, can somebody propose to a payment in lieu and we say, no, we want tree banking?
Well, we actually could add that in, it must be approved, but I think it's already written in there. So a tree preservation plan has to have a schematic plan, which is part of the process that the schematic plans are approved by council, but we would specifically put it in there.
Because
And then you have the discretion.
I share-
All in the fees.
I share Mark's concern, and I've expressed it when I was on the planning board, regarding a payment in lieu situation. But I also understand, at a workshop or whatever, you explained to me why sometimes a payment in lieu might be the best option. So I don't know if I want to categorically take it off the table, as long as there's some built-in discretion where, we think they're doing what Mark suggested. They're just, we'll just write a check. We're not interested in planting new trees. We can say, well, no, we'd like you to plant the trees, please. But there could be some situations where payment in lieu might be appropriate. So I don't know if I want to just completely take it off the table, but, I understand the reluctance to want to utilize it.
Well, you could format it, to where it's got to be demonstrated to a high degree why it is a hardship.
Right.
And it would have to be under strict criteria, because I agree, you may not want to take it off the table completely.
So we can easily, and it isn't there yet, if there were proposing tree planting outside, like in the park, that have to be accepted by the city, because we're not going to plant trees.
Right.
I think that,
So we could do the same thing for inland fees, saying, approved by city council. So either
Well-
one, any offsite mitigation has to be approved by
the
city
payment in,
council.
the payment in lieu, I understand it's a tool, but I think historically here, it's been problematic in our green space, in that I think a couple of developments, rather than save the green space, decided to go and do payment in lieu of, because if I save this green space, I can't build these 3 condos or houses, but if I cut them a check, I can build this. So the math tells me, write them a check and build the condos. See, I think it's got to be demonstrated beyond a doubt that it's such a hardship that they qualify for payment in lieu. And I don't think that that's been the benchmark that they've had demonstrated. I think they have the option, and they take that option.
Well, I think it's 2 separate. So I think one was someone paid in lieu fees for open space. And so that's separate from, and again, that was my understanding, the one development with a smaller compact design, they paid in lieu fee for open space, and I'm only aware of one project that paid in lieu fees for tree save area, and that was County Square.
Well, I thought they wanted to, but we said no.
No, you're thinking
I'm thinking of the one by the nursery, by R.L. Stowe Road and Keener.
yeah, no, that's another one. That was for open space, not tree
Okay.
save. So
But we-
we had 2 requests that went to council. My understanding of compact development, one was approved, and I can't think of Belmont Reserve.
Belmont Reserve.
Belmont Reserve was approved for in lieu fees for open space. Belmont Crossing.
Crossing.
Belmont Crossing proposed in lieu fee for open space and the no, so they purchased some additional hand.
Well, as I recall, the planning board recommended no, and before it got to council, they
That's
had worked
correct,
out.
so it's part of the process,
Yeah,
yeah. And then again, I'm only aware of one tree save mitigation that was payment in lieu of, and that was County Square.
So, council, if I could, so the open space ordinance that Shelley just referenced, that Belmont Reserve utilized, and that was before I got here, and I don't remember any other development using it since then. But that ordinance says that for payment in lieu, the city council may, at its sole discretion, accept either an equitable amount of land or payment paid by the city, or paid to the city in lieu of the dedication of open space. So since the ordinance says the city council has the discretion to approve payment in lieu for open space, I would suggest that we change the tree preservation payment in lieu to the city council. The current draft puts it in the planning director. I would prefer that it go to the city council so that we're being consistent with open space and tree preservation.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right. Anybody have any other questions for Shelley?
Star.
We have a motion to come out of public hearing.
I'll make a motion to come out of public hearing.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Kelly did an excellent presentation.
So now the
Complicated
motion,
subject.
Table.
motion would be to table the ordinance until the October
October 5th.
5th regular council.
Do I have a second? Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That moves us on to the next public hearing that we have. Item number 4, accessory structure amendment. Conduct a public hearing to amend chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the Belmont Land Development Code.
I'll make a motion for the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to go into public hearing in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Melissa, take it away.
Great, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have before you text amendment 2019.02, which is a city-initiated text amendment that will be adding provisions to our accessory dwelling unit regulations and modernizing our general accessory structure regulations. Like I said, this is a staff-initiated text amendment that will focus on chapter 3, but chapters 2, 4, 5, and 6 are also being amended with some minor clarifications, and we're going to support the current of this amendment, chapter 3. So we are here for you tonight to implement goals of our comprehensive land use plan. Specifically, to permit a range of residential housing types, to encourage development of accessory dwelling units, and to allow our residents to age in place. I'll talk about that in a second. So in order to implement these goals, we're bringing before you specific regulations in the form of our zoning regulations or land development code. And so we are modernizing and unifying our existing code language and adding additional provisions. These are goals from our comprehensive land use plan, and we specifically mentioned development of accessory dwelling unit regulations in a way that protects our existing neighborhood character, but it allows affordable housing options that could then help our residents to age in place by getting income potential, and like everybody stays in their housing with it, could allow this. So these goals and action items are found in chapters 4 and 6 of our comprehensive land use plan. Let's give you a little bit of background. So we identified the need to make these changes, but I want to be really clear that we already allow rental cottages in our regulations. So this isn't a new type of use. We are modernizing our language, partly to bring it in compliance with state law changes. So some of our wording is outdated, so we knew that we needed to modernize our regulations. So we worked with staff, brought to our planning and zoning board, and some issues were identified at that meeting, where it was really clear to staff that our goals were not being met by the first draft. So we took and heard those concerns, formed a subcommittee, went through multiple analysis and drafts, and we reviewed and revised and are here tonight with the proposed amendment. So how did we do this? How did we get there? Well, we saw some highlights from our accessory structure regulations. We saw that we needed to unify and make this more cohesive for different accessory structures. We added a chart that lets us break down the size and number of accessory structures. And we had to do this in a way that was really intentional, because, like I said, we're talking about general accessory structures, and then also incorporate accessory dwelling unit regulations. And then we also addressed height and square footage concerns that we are implementing going forward. Okay, so specifically we needed to unify regulations, and we took some language out of chapter 6 and consolidated it in chapter 3. We made some intentional word choice changes, clarifying how square footage is calculated, unified garage, carport, and ADB regulations, and address height concerns as they relate to building setback. So, again, these are general regulations that apply to all different building accessory structures. So height, we were really looking at, we heard concerns about fear of having the taller building closer to the property line. So as we looked at different approaches on how to minimize the impact, we determined that it really makes sense to allow the same maximum height inside the principal structure buildable area. So on here, you can see this area in darker shades that is formed by taking the required building setbacks for the principal structure. In that area, we allow 2.5 stories in height. So in that area, we propose allowing up to a 2-story building. Outside of that area, but also meeting the other required setbacks, an accessory structure can be limited to 1 story in height unless a special use permit is granted. Then we added this chart that allows a range of sizes and number of buildings for different lot sizes. And you can see that there's also a minor incentive if one of the structures is an accessory dwelling unit. We revised the square footage allowance, but it's important to remember that there are other caps in place, such as maximum lot coverage and percent of the rear yard that can be covered. So we have a tiered approach that is proposed in this draft. So those are some of the unifying changes we made to our general accessory structure regulations. And as we go on through the next section, we get specific with additional accessory dwelling unit regulations, or ADU. So like I said, we do already allow rental cottage in Chapter 6. We got rid of that old outdated language and incorporated the changes into Chapter 3. We've added standards for both attached accessory dwelling unit and detached, but either way, there's a 900 square foot maximum size. We facilitated ADU construction within the principal building envelope, and we've also added some protections that needed to protect adjacent property owners and to keep the residential feel in our existing neighborhood. So here is a diagram that shows what it would look like for an attached accessory structure. We do require an additional off-street parking space, and we wanted to not have 2 front facades, so we prohibit a front-facing facade. It has to face the side or the rear. And detached accessory dwelling units also have the off-street parking required. The height depends on the placement on the property. And we also have additional landscape or screening and the more of a type A opaque buffer. So the Planning and Zoning Board heard this item at their August meeting. They found that it is consistent with the specified comprehensive land use plan goals and action items that are specifically addressed in this item. And they have recommended approval to City Council. They want to point out that we had some edits that were proposed, and I have made some changes. They're not substantial substance, but I will have an updated based on the draft that we received, the agenda was published. So thank you for that. So we actually hold public hearing and confirm plan consistency and complete the
Just a couple of questions. For a detached accessory dwelling unit, can the detached accessory dwelling unit still be up to 2 stories, even if the primary structure is only 1 story?
Yes, it can if it's in that principal building envelope, yes.
Okay. Does an attached accessory dwelling unit have to be the same height as the principal structure to which is attached?
No, we would not review it either, so you could build a.
So you could have a ranch house and build an accessory structure onto it and be 2 stories?
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to make clear that sometimes we're talking about accessory structures, sometimes we're talking about accessory dwelling units. And an accessory dwelling unit, as opposed to other accessory structures, the dwelling unit has to be within the principal structure buildable area. You can't build a dwelling unit outside of that area. Is that correct, as I understand it?
So that is not correct.
Okay.
We unified these regulations so that we're treating garages, carports, and ADUs pretty similarly.
Okay.
Which could also facilitate conversion. There's lots of reasons why. But at this time, in that principal building envelope, that's strictly dictating the height. Where
Okay.
by right, an accessory structure of any type can be 2 stories. Outside of that area, so say 5 feet from the property line, which is our current proposed setback, then it can be an accessory dwelling unit or a garage or a workshop, but it's limited in height
Okay.
and those areas.
So an accessory dwelling unit is part of the definition of accessory structure?
An accessory dwelling unit is an accessory structure,
Okay.
but not all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all accessory dwelling units are accessory structures, but not all accessory structures are accessory dwelling units?
Yes, yes. So, but they are defined separately.
Yeah, okay. But either one, as long as it's 1 story, could be like within the rear setback as opposed to the principal building. Okay, thank you.
Anybody have any other questions for
I
Melissa?
have a concern just from scale, because to me, if you have a 1-story structure, I don't want a 2-story structure attached to it or detached from it, because I think if you're looking at the look of Belmont, and that's one of the things we're really concerned about, that to me is a problem. And of course, I'm very concerned about scale in a lot of situations here, but that's your problem, actually.
I do understand that, and we felt the same. But we also then, the further we looked and analyzed it, we realized that this is certain area, people with the ability to just build 2 stories, so, and then there are also certain things we cannot quite dictate, so we can't. One of the changes that we're making, for example, is making sure that we don't dictate the bedroom layout, for example, and by requiring accessory dwelling units to have a second story, there's just some areas we can't particularly regulate. So I feel like that would get into an area. Because, like I said, we went through many drafts, and so one idea that they had along the way was, well, I can do that, but bottom line is adding the statement in chapter 3. That was saying, but basically it was, where it talks about height, okay, accessory structures may be 2 stories in height when observing the setback requirements for the principal structure. Otherwise, accessory structures must be 1 story in height. We could also say, we could add a provision that says accessory structures cannot exceed the height of the principal house.
Okay, but that would be such a burden from my standpoint.
I mean, I'm fine with that. Does anyone?
I just want to add that, so we've been working on this for a year, and that was one point of contention, was do we allow a two-story accessory dwelling unit in the primary home is like a ranch, one story? And one of the earlier provisions, or drafts, I should say, said if you wanted to exceed the height of the primary structure, you could buy SUP, so it would be on a case-by-case basis. So if I have an acre lot, my house is a ranch, but I want to put a two-story, say a garage with accessory dwelling on top, which would be two-story, it's not really visible, can I at least come before the council and see in this specific case, would you consider an approval? So there's always that option. That was an earlier version of the draft, and then we kept looking at our goals about we're trying to facilitate the development of these accessory dwelling units, and within a building envelope outside your setback, any residentially zoned single-family lot has the ability to build 2.5 stories. So we were saying, okay, wait a minute, if someone's doing an attached accessory dwelling and they wanted to go 2 stories to keep the primary house, we're penalizing them, but if they were just in an addition, it would be okay. So we were just really trying to look at, okay, what is somebody's rights within the existing building envelope? Do we go SUP or say if you're allowed to do it by right for single-family home, you're good? And that's how we ended up writing this section. And it did go back to the planning board. We had a steering committee, and we've kind of worked on this a long time. So there are options if you're uncomfortable for by allowing it by right. We would propose, instead of going all the way back, say maybe let's try it by SUP and see what's coming in. And then you would have discretion, and then you'd be able to see what's happening out there. And if you're comfortable with it, then you could always amend it in the future if you want to allow it by right. But that's just an option.
Let me ask you, I mean, if you drive around Belmont, you'll see that scenario already where people have 2-story structures in a ranch. You go over by Davis Park, there's at least one. Let me ask you, I've got a 2-story house right now, and I'm considering building a 2-car garage with a workshop over. I can do that, is that correct? Now, if I had a ranch, what we're talking about is I may still have the need or desire to do that, but we're going to put in conditions where it would be subject to the approval of someone else if I could do that, meaning council or planning and zoning.
Correct. If we need that change, you would, as it's proposed right now, you would allow by right, you could do your 2-story building in that building envelope. But if we make this change, you would then have to apply for an SUP to build a 2-story accessory structure every time if your house is 1 story.
Well, I guess we differ on our view on that. I mean, I don't really have a problem with the ranch house having a 2-story structure, it being out of scale. I mean, I'm looking at it, if I determine that I have the need, I want my cars in the garage and I want the second floor for my shop or whatever, you know, I still think that's not excessive of me as a property owner to want to do that. I shouldn't have to go before council to demonstrate anything to be allowed to do that.
I agree with that perspective, and I was just thinking kind of in my mind as this was coming through, because Richard and I don't live that far apart. We also live in an older neighborhood where people kind of can do what they want to do. And so that might be why we have a little bit different views. A lot of people live in HOAs. And when I lived in Adams Bluff, even to put a shed in my backyard, I had to go through the HOA. So the city isn't the one that's even micromanaging this stuff. Like, everybody has to go through an HOA anyhow. And I think if you live in an HOA, you're already putting yourself in that position. And so to add yet another layer, it's probably irrelevant for HOA. So really, we're just looking at some of the older non-HOA neighborhoods in the community. And I think if they want to do a 2-story shed on the back of their 1-story ranch, it's fine with me. But I like the pictures. I thought the size of it was great to me. But I think that's about as far as I would want to go on something. I understand Martha's concern, but I think when you're just looking at some of the older homes, some of the bigger lots around town versus HOA type houses, where I'd be more concerned is like where things are more uniform, those people like those neighborhoods. Do you have an HOA in your neighborhood?
No, yeah, I was gonna
In your
say,
neighborhood's a little bit older, like older, it's medium property age, I guess, but.
yeah, most of the houses in there are from the 80s.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm trying to think we've got anything like this in there. But yeah, I mean, we could, there's no border and unit structure. I mean, I guess it's kind of similar to your neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the HOA is enough.
I think we're getting to a point, I mean, my perspective, we're asking the individual citizen property owner to come before council to receive too much consent on their property, whether it be, you know, you can't take this tree down, we want you to build over here, or you can only have a two-story structure if you meet this criteria. I don't want people to have to come before council for things that I think they should be allowed to do on their property within, you know, within reason, as long as it doesn't impact me as their neighbor or adversely affect me. You know, because I mean, in your heading there, I can't remember which presentation it was, but it said, you know, a concern for personal property rights. But I think that was geared more toward development. You know, I want that same benchmark to be applied to the taxpayer, the individual citizen, when, you know, afford you the same amount of respect or will to someone building 600-700 houses.
And wouldn't you have to grandfather a lot of stuff in, maybe? Or
I think
are you allowed to
the way
change the rules on
we
this?
designed it is to hopefully minimize non-conforming issues. But to just be clear, as proposed, we did feel and understand those concerns. So we thought we left that FCC out for this particular topic of a two-story accessory structure. When the house is one story, because we didn't feel it was burdensome and not meeting the goals that we even facilitating the construction to allow it as is. So as it's proposed, it's allowed by right in that area without.
Are residences allowed on the second story? I missed that.
They are.
They are.
So
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions for Melissa? All right. Do I have a motion to come out of public hearing?
So moved.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That leads us to item number 5. Accessory structure amendment. Adopt an ordinance to amend the chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the Belmont Land Development Code. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second?
I'll second.
Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'm going,
All opposed? One opposed. Okay. Martha's opposed.
I would make a motion that, do I need a consistency motion?
Yes.
I would make a motion that this amendment is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan and goals. Number 1, land use. Goal number 2, economy. Chapter 6, which permits and encourages the development of accessory dwellings and single-family neighborhoods and establishes design criteria to minimize their impact on adjacent properties and neighborhood character, and because it helps implement the Chapter 6 action item that states ensure the land development code permits residential growth and development that allows residents to age in place within neighborhoods.
I'll second that. That was well said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess I'm going on back.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, let's move on. Item number 6 and 7 are removed for a future
I
date.
think you need to vote to remove those.
Pardon me?
You need a vote.
You need to vote to remove them.
I would vote to remove item number 6, consider adoption of an ordinance for demolition for 114 Morning Glory Avenue until such time as the appropriate process is undertaken.
That was,
I think we got to do it individually.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 7.
You're on a roll.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I would make a motion to remove item number 7, consider adoption of an ordinance for the demolition of 325 Todd Street Extension until such time as the appropriate process has been completed.
I'll second.
Motion, do I hear a second?
Richard second.
Second.
Richard second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That moves us on to item number 8, downtown kiosk advertising proposal.
Let's call it Camelback. Good afternoon, council members.
It's past that.
Just
Just let you know where we're at.
I'm going fast, my stomach is talking to me. So I'm here tonight on behalf of Main Street DDA to talk a little bit, you know, I mean, hold this, talk about the downtown kiosk. The kiosks were created to put vital information into the hands of the city's residents and its visitors, and to further sustain our downtown businesses by driving customer traffic through their doors, which is happening. We're getting a lot of great feedback from our downtown businesses. And we've actually seen a lot of people using our kiosks, getting a lot of feedback on the kiosks. So the other day, we actually saw these two ladies downtown. Short video, very short.
Welcome to the kiosk, and these beautiful ladies were experiencing it, and I asked them their opinion. So, do you mind sharing with me some of what you said? No, not at all. First of all, it doesn't have to be yet, it doesn't have to be from a train, and I have to look at the color and so we were just never in the good.
So she was from South Carolina, met her friend from Charlotte and Belmont, and had a great experience. And so we were able to, Angela and I were downtown and captured that. So we just thought that was great to actually capture some of the response from some of our visitors. So through the development of the kiosk, we finally finished our last section to do the C section. So then that opened the door for us to move forward with trying to capitalize and generate some revenue for advertisements on the kiosk. And that was a big part of the discussion when we were getting approval to move forward with the kiosk. So the primary objective of the advertisement project is to offer exclusive value to our downtown businesses and organizations first. So we would like to work with our downtown businesses and our organizations first to take advantage of advertising opportunities. Then we would open it up to other businesses, organizations outside of downtown who would want to take advantage of advertising on the kiosk. If you utilize the kiosk, you know there's an track loop. We're going to have 3 paid advertising sections on the track loop. And then if you were to touch the screen, that brings you to our sections where we have food and drink, retail, non-retail, services, that we see, we would have an opportunity on each of those screens as well for a paid advertisement. So unlike other traditional advertising, we feel like the Belmont Kiosk will offer affordable and exclusive marketing opportunities for our downtown businesses and our organizations. So members of the DPDA met with the Lowry Agency, we got Michael Appleby with Gaston County Tourism, as well as had conversations with several of our businesses downtown to get some feedback on what they felt like would be some good pricing for doing advertisement on our kiosks. So these advertising prices here is what we're proposing, which actually reflect a 25% discount to our downtown businesses and organizations for our first 3 months of advertising as a pilot initiative. After the first 3 months is over, we would then go to our regular pricing, which would increase for the track loop. Option 1 would be $250. Option 2 are the lower right categories on our different screens for non-retail, etc. Those would then increase to $130. And then on the Judo and C section, that section would increase back to $195. But we wanted to offer first a 25% discount and work with our downtown businesses and organizations to get a feel for how useful that would be. So if all advertising spots were taken for the first quarter with our downtown businesses and organizations, we would generate approximately almost $1,500. If the remaining 3 quarters, the full prices would generate almost $6,000. And then for the entire year, we could potentially raise around $7,400 as generated revenue from kiosk advertisements. So as far as generated revenue, so the DPA feels all revenue, even our revenue, should be invested back into the kiosk. It would cover the annual license, any block of hours needed for professional development. So as the kiosk is up and running, we're already seeing other functions and capabilities of the kiosk. And trying to capitalize on those additional capabilities, we would have to hire professional development teams who can build that out for us. So that would cost additional money for us. Other things as far as, these are computers and monitors. 3 to 5 years down the road, they're going to need to be replaced. And so this money could replace that hardware, or be there for future software upgrades, or down the road could potentially add new kiosks in the River District and the Commonwealth District. So the logistics, this is something that the committee, the DDA, has been working on for quite some time. You saw the rates that we are proposing. They've also created the submission process in working with our downtown businesses and organizations. We would have a review so that when the material comes in, any advertisement, we want to make sure that it is suitable for being displayed in public. And they've also created an advertisement agreement, which I believe Gino has also saw and worked with. So a lot of work has gone into the development for moving forward with doing advertisements and generating revenue with the kiosks. So where does that leave us? We would need 2 things. We would need council approval. We would need you to bless this and us moving forward. But then we would also need to get an understanding on the account and the agreement. I should have put the agreement there as well, the termination. So the DPDA is fully willing to move forward with taking ownership of the agreements, working with businesses. And then as far as revenue, when revenue comes in, the DVDA has been tracking its revenue, going over that monthly in our financial report. But we'll be up to, I guess, you, the council, as far as when the revenue comes in, as far as it coming into the DVDA budget or going back into the city budget. And so that would need to be determined by the council. So, but the DVDA did vote to take ownership by you to enter into agreements with businesses, organizations, and to account for all that.
Got a question, Phil. Who's going to monitor the income from this?
The DVDA, the board. We have a financial report every month at our meeting. Not only does it include the revenue, but it breaks it out. We've actually started tracking all revenue. So if you've seen one of the last several months, the DVDA financial report, the second page, it shows where all money is broken out and accounted for. So that would be, it would follow along the lines with any other project that the DVDA has raised money for, and then we would, for money to be allocated for, so we would track it.
Thank you.
Phil, let me ask you a question. When these kiosks were first rolled out, there was a program, I guess a pilot program, where you were approaching, or the Merchants Association, I think, was approached to advertise on this at like $125 a month, which got a kind of a tepid response. Why do you think now many of those businesses, which are in the Merchants Association, still downtown, would go ahead now and pay $187.50 initially, and then $235 roughly to advertise when they weren't willing to do it at $125?
First, I didn't have Merchants Association. So
well, we did. I think it was rolled out to them or brought to somebody. There was a pilot program where I remember it was $125 a month.
I don't recall that.
I can tell you my recollection. I don't know about the Merchants Association. The $125 was if to have your name like in the directory and have it like folded versus not folded. So if you have Belmont Foods, it would just say Belmont Foods. You can click on it, but if you wanted to have it folded, it'd be like $150 a month. So I think that didn't get a whole lot of.
Okay.
Hold up. It's kind of like folding in the yellow pages. I just think it was a kind of older idea that nobody bid on.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah,
I don't recall any of that conversation.
okay. Well, I think Ryan might be right. I remember there was the number figure is pretty close, but what that content was going to be, I guess I can't recall exactly, but
Right.
I mean, do you feel that there is a market out there for this?
Yes, so we've actually had conversations with the businesses, and they're excited about this. They feel for 3 months, and this would be for a 3-month advertisement, that they would have options as far as the track loop, or once you hit the screen and it goes to click on food and drink as far as having a smaller advertisement there. So there's different price points. So there could be something available for every business that they so choose. But they do not have to. They want to advertise elsewhere. But as far as some businesses are not really advertising, in talking with the lottery agency and with Michael Applegate, they felt like these prices were very fair.
I mean, I know these kiosks have been a source of contention, but I feel that, regardless of how you might have felt about the need for them in the first place, this is just putting extra money in our pockets and in some ways helping make them more self-sustaining, that, they're there now, and here's a chance to monetize them and bring extra revenue into the city. So I think you don't have to be a strident supporter of them to still think that, here's a way to make money off of them now that they're here. So I think this is a good idea. I don't see, what would be the downside. I mean, even if nobody bites, what's the cost?
Well, and that's what the priority would be, to work with their downtown businesses and organizations first, giving them an opportunity to advertise. And then if they choose not to, then we would open it up to other hotels or other businesses, all over some boulevard or outside of the city, if they wanted to advertise.
I think you ought to do, I'm not opposed to it. I think you're right. I mean, they're there. We might as well try to make some money on them, but I mean, my suggestion would be to open it up to some of the larger businesses on the boulevard, not restrict yourself to Main Street. My only other question is, you want to take over the accounts. Do you foresee being able to generate enough money to purchase another kiosk? And if not, why wouldn't that account just stay with the city? Because you'll probably be coming back to the city for some potential financial aid on another kiosk. Might as well just keep it all in one pot.
No, that's a fair question, and the DBA has continuously sought out grants to provide for additional projects, including adding additional kiosks. We have a particular business owner that likes the kiosk and might have interest in helping to underwrite adding another kiosk. And so, the DBA is taking ownership and really working on developing this initiative. So, they'll continue to seek out grants, and so they have a sense of ownership for the kiosks. So, and regardless of where the money goes, it's just a matter of putting forth the meeting that we want to do. My initial, early on in the process, I misunderstood as far as a conversation with the city budget. Each revenue would come in and just go into the general coffers and not be earmarked for the kiosk. And so that's when the DBA said, well, we'll just bring the money in our, and we'll earmark it and be allocated strictly for kiosks. And but then if I understand that we could create another account with Michelle and try to track it.
I mean, for me, that's...
We were further along in the process, and so...
I mean, for me, that's fine. I like that approach, that you have separate pools of money earmarked for the purposes they're outlined, and they can't be commingled. I'm fine with that.
Yes, on page 206, under eligible participants, it says that you would give preference to Main Street businesses or businesses in the Main Street district. And then if there's other advertising spaces, to be open to other businesses or organizations located within Belmont and outside the Main Street districts. So I want to make sure, because you just said potentially outside of Belmont.
But I think outside of downtown.
Yes, I want to make sure,
Outside
but
of
I'm
downtown.
comfortable with Wilson Boulevard or the Hampton Inn or somebody else advertising on them, but I'm not comfortable with letting businesses or organizations from outside of Belmont advertise on them.
No,
Because
and
the
I
city
mean
may be
outside of the
additional.
downtown
Yes.
district, sorry. But that was a priority we given to.
Because if these were in another town, I would be all about advertising on their thing to get people to come to
Or
Belmont.
maybe we increase the price, if no gas going is $5,000.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to pay that,
No, I'm still, no.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Michael Applegate has expressed interest in using it for storage in the gas station, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, Michael Applegate
So-
loves the kiosk. He would love to have one up at his building, and he's ready to advertise as well. He sees these as a great tool to have right downtown.
So, I guess clarification, if he wants to advertise for gas and county tourism, do we have to dictate to him that it has to be something within Belmont?
Well, he would be an organization located within Belmont,
Okay, but he might be.
but he may be advertising in the whole town, which I'm okay with.
I just
I don't want the Esquire Hotel to advertise in Belmont and pull our customers to Gastonia. They need to do that on their own, not using something that we pay for.
I think
Yeah,
we
that's
should
reasonable.
figure it out from here.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a little bit of time, sorry, when I said outside of
Yeah, you
my
got me
district
going.
downtown.
I like the idea of having a separate account, just because I think if we're going to collect money from this to then use for kiosks, maintenance or whatever, that actually stay within a designated pot. And then a unrelated question, do we have any way of like tracking clicks so that like if somebody buys ad space, we can say this is actually how many people click?
You can also package this up when you're getting sponsors for concerts and stuff. Throw in some ad
At such
space.
time as concerts.
Yeah, at
must be
such
held.
time concerts.
Well,
exist.
we basically agreed we would always maintain 5 to 7 loop images, 3 of which would be paid advertisement. One would be like an image of the city. One could be for a nonprofit organization like KDB or KDB. One would be for an event or, promoting anything like that. So the DPA has kind of created some internal guidelines as far as, what would be best for promotion. So we just don't have, 5 or 7 advertisements on the loop. We want to make it attractive to catch the attention of something like that. So a lot of thought. That's why I do that.
Any other questions for Phil?
I'll make a motion to approve the advertising proposal with revenues to go into the separate account as outlined under the auspices of the DBDA.
I'll second.
Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? No. Very good. All right, Bill, thank you so much for your presentation. That will bring us to item number 9, approval of location for the Belmont Skateboard Park.
Emphasize that order, sorry.
Okay.
I'll start this, and then I'll turn it over to Councilwoman Stowe or Councilman Turner, who asked to have this on the agenda for this evening's meeting. During the CIP workshop, we talked about the location of the skateboard park. The Parks and Recreation Board has discussed this as well, but there was a request from 2 council members to put it on tonight for a decision. And the city has been talking about a skateboard park for many years. We've looked at locations at Davis Park, on Chronicle Street beside the police department, and then now at the Recreation Center. And at the workshop for the CIP a few weeks ago, the council narrowed that down to Davis Park and the Recreation Center, and then asked to, 2 members asked to bring this to us tonight, or to you tonight for consideration. So I want to show the Davis Park option and then the Recreation Center option to you, and just kind of give you what I thought were some pros and cons of each location. So the Davis Park location would be on the city-owned property here that's outlined in blue. There's a house here on the corner of Leach Street and Park Drive, and then here is our recently renovated tennis courts right across from Elizabeth Street and Belmont Foursquare Church. This is about a 0.57 acre parcel, so it's a little over half an acre parcel. It's sparsely wooded, but it does have some shade to it. One advantage or a pro of this location is that it is centrally located to where we have our most densely populated area of town, which is the core of town. So it would be easy access for people to arrive to on their skateboards. And there is enough room based on the size dimensions that we've been discussing. Some of the what I would consider cons would be whether or not a skateboard park would be compatible with this residential area and tennis. If you're playing tennis, do you want to listen to people skateboard? And perhaps vice versa. If you're skateboarding, do you want to listen to people play tennis? And those may not be the most compatible uses. Parking is very limited at Davis Park. We have some on-street parking, both striped in the primary part of the park between the playground area and the baseball field. But then we have some informal unstriped on-street parking on Park Drive itself. Other than that, we don't really have parking at Davis Park. Belmont Foursquare Church has been very gracious to let us use their parking, but we do not have a formal agreement with them. And then security and staffing. We do not have staffing at Davis Park, so it will be used at your own risk. I would assume we would want cameras there, but other than that, there's not going to be anybody at the park in case an incident were to happen or an accident were to happen. So, you know, good location, maybe not the best location, in my opinion, but this is your decision. So the recreation center option, the design team for the recreation center has looked at this. Is hard to see, but there's an opportunity to put a skate park in the middle of the parking lot. You're already developing this site. That's probably not ideal because it would be literally in the middle of the parking lot. It would be fenced in, but again, compatibility, skating in a parking lot. They did see that there's enough space up here by the City Works building. This parking lot is going to be redeveloped and rebuilt, but there still would be space left here under these power lines on green space that we can't otherwise use. This is city-owned wooded lot here, and this is the the water treatment plant. There are some houses farther west of this area, but not right up on it. The pros here are sort of flipped. We would have security and staffing. We'll have the recreation department both at the City Works building and at the recreation center. And we will have a lot of other staff, not just the recreation staff, but this will be a much more visible location with city staff eyes on it.
I agree.
There's plenty of room for parking, and there is enough room for a skate park, whether you do it here or down here. The cons, again, compatibility with neighbors. Anytime you have residential uses, there's a concern about a non-residential use nearby. That, to me, is limited here compared to Davis Park, just because there's fewer residences. There's not as many people living on 13th Street and 9th Street as there are on Park Drive and Lee Street in the Davis Park neighborhood. But still, you're going to have some concerns about lighting, noise, hours of operation. So those are things that, once you make the decision on where to do it, then we have the operational plan and program that we would bring back to you, and all those issues to be addressed. I'm sure we would want to have some neighborhood input no matter what. But to me, one of the big cons for this location is that it's a bit more remote. It's accessible for folks that live in East Belmont and the neighborhoods around there, particularly once we build the Abbey Creek Greenway. It'll be a lot more accessible for Adams Bluff and some other neighborhoods. But it is not centrally located like Davis Park. So, we're not going to find that one perfect spot that hits everything. So you're going to have to make the best decision that you feel for the community. One other. There we go. So we think that, assuming that the soil is good, and you don't have to dig out a bunch of soil, that the cost to build the skate park at the size that we've been discussing will be about the same at either location. The city has $52,592 that's been in our fund balance for many years, dedicated to the skate park. $50,000 of it is from that payment in lieu of open space we mentioned earlier from Belmont Reserve, and then the $25,92 is from donations, primarily from Park Street Methodist Church, I think in 2006. Depending on the size and how complex we want to make the skate park with the number of features for it, the cost could be anywhere from $135,000 to $225,000. I believe the one on Mount Holly, I think you said is closer to $225,000. So we do have basically some seed money in our fund balance for this, but what you discussed at the CIP workshop would be just to finance the difference between the cost of the skate park and what we already have raised for it, and potentially any other money that we would have raised for it, and roll that financing into the bigger loan for the recreation center. It really doesn't affect our annual debt service payments that much by adding, say, $110,000 or $150,000 in additional financing. So, two council members asked to have this on the agenda for consideration. So what, as staff, what we need is a decision from the council so that we know how to move forward, whether to design one at Davis Park or at the rec center. And then if we want to roll this into the loan for the rec center, we need to figure this out in the next few months as far as the scope and cost of it so that we can put this in with our rec center loan.
Adrian,
Yes.
I'm guessing because it wasn't listed in the cons, that the issue with the power lines at the rec center is no longer an issue, because I think David had brought out last time the potential of rerouting or diverting some power lines that might
Yes, I haven't heard any more about that, and the engineering engineering consultant for the rec center listed there, that I think that would be, if we relocate those 3 lines, then it will upset what we're doing at the driveway and could end up costing more than the benefit of having those buried. So that's a decision point we're going to have to make for the rec center. But you could build a skate park underneath those power lines and it would not interfere with those overhead lines.
Anybody have any questions for
I
Adrian?
guess I need to comment, as we discussed before, we've looked at this, not we ourselves, but as a city in the past 15 years. If the middle school is staying here in this now, I think they would part with an ideal situation. But either way, that you have kids, if they're going to the park, we do have sidewalks and different to get to where they need to be. One of the things that possibly is that some of these students would be there with parents, some not. But I think from the standpoint of safety overall, to ask the police or parks and rec people to be involved, we're asking too much of them to the Davis Park side. I think it makes much better sense from the safety standpoint and usability to look at one of the possible sites of the rec center. One of the reasons we're here, Jim and I both attended several of the Parks and Rec meetings. They in principle are all for this, but they can't decide either, since it's coming to this body to make the final decision. I've asked Richard, we talked about this, we need to go in and say, this is what we think, so that would give them some direction as far as what needs to happen. That's all.
Now, did you say that we're using the First Foursquare parking lot right now? They're just letting us use it when we have parking needs? Would we then, if we put it here, would we be able to develop that Davis Park site for some parking? Would that be an option, or?
That would be an option, certainly.
Is that something we would need?
Well, my preference would be to formalize an agreement with Belmont Foursquare Church to utilize their parking lot.
Sure.
So I live in the neighborhood next to them. When they have their church services, that parking lot is full, but the majority of the week, it is empty. So it's a good use both for drop-off for the elementary school as well as people playing tennis at Davis Park. So instead of adding additional impervious surface in an area where we've got concerns about drainage, I'd rather utilize the existing parking.
Sure.
Obviously, it'd be a lot cheaper for us to do it, and we could do something else at the Davis Park site that maybe not quite as intensive as parking. But we would have that option if we wanted to, and if we couldn't reach an agreement with Foursquare Church.
Well, I mean, I agree with Martha about the middle school, the new location. If it was where the school is now, then Davis Park would be ideal. But, you know, I thought about it, and it's like, what's convenient for me? Matt doesn't skateboard. My kids are older. But I like the idea, and again, I don't know from Adam, I'm just saying my personal preference. This appeals to me because if I got kids that skateboard, I can take them to this location, not have to watch them, go in and walk the track, play basketball, just sit in the air conditioning, give them an hour or two, whatever they're going to do, then I go outside and I collect them and I go home. There's something for the parent, if they're going to be transporting them, you know, the mom or dad get their workout in while the kid's skateboarding. That makes sense to me. I don't know if it does to anyone else, but I mean, that, if my children skateboarded and they say, can you take me skateboarding, I'm more likely going to be saying yes if there's something in it for me, which is kind of selfish, but I'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I get my workout in, shoot hoops, walk, and then get him. So
And if they got in trouble, we would know exactly where to find you.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Come in and get you.
yeah, that's true
You
too.
need to come and talk to Matt.
In reality, the kids skateboard home from school. Kids that South are using school skateboards in the room, because they're gonna skateboard home from school, some of them. And some of them will probably use it for skateboarding all the way down. And so we will have to make sure our sidewalks are well maintained, and we're gonna have them on the skateboards. So they probably, during the situation, your son would not be happy to be taking a year and skateboard won't be on his own if you were a skateboarder. So, but I think still the safety aspect probably is the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I originally was more in favor of Davis Park, for the reasons, I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't skateboard, but some of my friends did. And, you know, they wouldn't be caught dead with their mom dropping them off on a skateboard. You know, they're gonna go skate, you know, that would like totally negate the whole cool factor of skateboarding in the first place. But, so I was worried about, you know, Catawba Street is not the most conducive to skating, to skateboarding, to get to the skate park. But I do agree with Martha and Richard that, you know, the middle school departing from its current location and relocating down South Point Road, you know, you're going to have a lot of the same concerns at Davis Park now, in terms of having to skate up South Point Road to get there after school. So I think that's a wash now, and I do think that, like Richard said, it's a way that, yeah, you can go there, but they can do their thing up there and pretend that they don't know mom and dad while they go work out or whatever. So I do think that ultimately carries the day. But you know, I would caution. You know, I worry about. My recollection is that there's not a contiguous sidewalk like from, or is there from? There is. Okay.
From where?
From like the intersection with Keener Park.
Yeah, there's sidewalk on one side of the street. Yeah, top of the street.
Okay.
Well, if we do the $1 million paving project, we talk about sidewalks, and if there's bad sections there, maybe we can target those as well. Make sure we got a smooth surface.
For all the walk.
I'm fairly certain you're not going to have sidewalk, not going to skateboarding about. So we're going to have to really consider that can be a problem. So, because, right, so, right, it's just not on the sidewalks, so that's where pedestrians get real upset when they run over by
Skateboard.
So we just want to make sure.
That's in the ordinance already. You're not allowed to do that.
Right, so I just wanted to make sure that
Well, I think the rec center has, I mean, there is some residential around it, but if you look at the Davis Park option, like the skate park would be practically in somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I could see them not necessarily being a big fan of that. So I think that, you know, there's a lot more spacing around it here too, where some property is either not residential or owned by us. So I think that's another pro for this site.
Any other special public work?
Riddle me this. So is all we're asking for just to determine the location, and we'll, because you know, there's some issues with funding and when and how, you know, that I don't know if I'm necessarily ready to resolve, you know, if we're just determining the location, I'm fine with that.
So all we're asking tonight, as far as I'm concerned, is, or aware, is the location. And then,
There's a lot of variables to the cost, because we have some volunteers who are middle-aged men who skateboard who would help with some of this. So, you know, basically, all we need to talk about is where.
and if we wanted to, Zip, chime in and correct me if what I'm about to say is totally off base. If we time it right, we could have this as an add alternate to the rec center, so that we could, you know, if the rec center comes in at the budget figure we're looking at, we could add to it and just have the general contractor for the rec center build this and hopefully save a little bit of mobilization costs and everything else, instead of doing it as a separate project where you've got all that overhead.
Yeah.
The overhead will already be built into the rec center, so it may be something we can get done. And the plan for the rec center is to start construction in April or May of next year, so this would get, and that's, I think, a 14-month construction period. So you're looking at building the skate park at the same time as the rec center, so, I mean, 2 years is a long time, but we've been talking about it for however long. Yeah, so.
So do you guys want to do it in the parking lot or the north side?
Under the power lines.
Yeah. On the one there by the parking lot of the city works building, back power line.
Although there was a suggestion to put it on the roof of the rec center. How would you like that, Adrian?
I think that's where the pool is going.
Not unless they have wings.
I don't know that our liability company would appreciate that. I don't want to pay that premium.
Do you need a motion for this?
Yes, please.
Martha, would you make?
I'll make a motion that we approve the site under the power line as our first choice, the second choice is the new parking lot that doesn't work out as a project with that.
I'll second.
Motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries then, so
Thank you.
thank you very much. Finally. All right, and we have another item that's added, is item number 10.
Land 11.
So we have item 10,
10, right here.
which is,
It was added to the deal, and then got
River West.
yes, to extend the street closure time limit for the River West Business Park
Yeah.
from October 1st to December 31st.
Shelley?
Sounds like all the information.
Shelley, you don't have to give the entire project history.
Yeah, that's great. So, we received a request, to extend the ordinance that would withdraw from dedication Centerview Street to James Circle. This is tied to the River West conditional zoning project that is currently under construction, over on Woodlawn. And, when we approved the, original request, it gave the effective date October 1st of this year. They are still doing some infrastructure construction within Centerview Street and have asked for a time extension to make the effective date December 31st by the end of the year. That should be plenty of time for them to wrap that up.
And the attorney for the applicant is here.
Yes, John Russell.
Have any other questions?
Any questions for Shelley?
That's pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward. Before John gets up.
Want to ask
So
for a motion?
if you have any questions, John Russell's here to answer any questions you have.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carried.
Thanks for
He's got quite the
meeting, John.
We should have moved this to item 1.
Make sure you bill your client for all.
Yeah.
Make sure to bill your client for the 2.5 hours.
That moves us on to our reports.
No.
No.
The add-on.
So we moved item 9 from the consent agenda to item 11 on the regular agenda, which is the approval of a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute and file the request to NC Department of Environmental Quality for the reduction in residential wastewater design flow.
I'm on.
You asked to move that, so I'll
Okay.
turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I mean, initially, when we're cutting capacity by half, I've got concerns about that. I see in here that other towns have done the same thing, but if I understand this correctly, the benchmark for DEQ is still 120 gallons per bedroom per day. And if that's correct, why isn't DEQ modifying their standard if they're getting so many requests from everybody? Because what I've got to guess, and I don't know, I say I'm guessing, is these towns are coming forward and requesting this because they find themselves in the situation we are, where development on the peninsula or wherever for them would slow or stop unless we receive that reduction from DEQ. I just want to make sure we're being motivated by the right things here and that we're not doing this just to accommodate more development on the peninsula when development is, traffic is a problem. I don't want to cut capacity in half to facilitate more development, which is putting pressure on our schools and our roads. So that was one of my concerns.
I understand the concern. I think one of the things that makes me think that this is appropriate is that the development is going to come in the way, whether you go to septic tanks or whether you go to wastewater treatment. And so from an environmental standpoint, I would prefer that if we have the capacity in this region, that we offer that as opposed to people in septic systems, because as most of us know, the land that we are on, the dead land does not fulfill, and it does not long-term do the best job as far as taking care of wastewater. So that's my perspective.
Well, I mean, I agree with you in theory, but I don't think you're going to see a major development with all the houses on septic.
No, they'll do their own system or something. Either way, if it's legal, I think it's not supposed to do it.
Let me ask a question. I think this is a question for Jerry, because I was a bit confused. The current capacity is based on calculation, is that right? We're not necessarily, based on your investigation, you're not necessarily saying that these houses are actually using 120.
Well, that's what I proved in studies, not to use less gallon water into that pump station.
But
120 comes from a group to develop 10 state standards that 50 to 60s. You may have noticed that we have another house, plumbing fixtures in it. The study area is essentially all brand new house. Some, have a lot of kids, some don't. We have good records, water use, water heating system. Know the number of bedrooms down there, total water usage, numbers that are 40 to 50 gallons. Per day, per bed, and then to care work, we also have pump station. We have records of how long pumps run per day. Fact of the matter is, because they're designed to gallons per day, such oversized.
But, I mean, I guess that's where my disconnect was. Even though, according to NCDEQ, we are at capacity, even though we are, and that, because that's based on their calculations, even though you're saying we're not anywhere near capacity. Have they been granted? And what would be the consequence if we were to apply and not get?
Well, there's no consequence. You can say, I want this development to move forward. Not us. Just we don't have to create a bigger facility. A lot of them. Very least it's going to take a new pipe or a branch all the way up to the next. And it's not necessary.
So the city would have to pay for that.
Well,
Well, you're right. That's my question.
So there's, and Chuck and Jerry, please correct me when I say something out of turn. There's two things. One is development. which everybody hates, but it's necessary, and, you know, and so right now, we are out of wastewater treatment capacity on the southern end of the peninsula, according to DEQ. Theoretical capacity, design capacity from the state regulations. In reality, we're at about half capacity. So we've got enough to double the amount of wastewater that we're treating to send through our system, based on the size of our pipes and the size of the lift stations. So we are able to accommodate development. That's one thing, that may be good and that may be bad. The other is just the operations of the system. If we need to have a system that's twice as big as what's needed based on state regulations versus actual usage, then that adds to the cost that we have as a city and as our ratepayers and our utility customers to maintain a system that's bigger than needed. Just like our, you know, as our economy transformed 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, we now have a residential customer base primarily for wastewater and water. Our plants are sized to accommodate twice as much capacity as what we have. So we have these really high fixed costs because of our assets that are operating at 50% capacity. That's, in a very broad scale, that's similar to what we've seen down on the south end of the peninsula because the homes are more efficient down there. So it's both an operational cost savings to us to allow more capacity into an existing system, because otherwise you've got fewer customers paying for the operations of it and the maintenance. Those are city costs. We've got to maintain all those stations. We've got to repair the force mains and the water mains as they break. So there's the operational side, but then there's also the potential for development. Now, any new development that comes through your process. If it doesn't meet your standards, it doesn't meet the goals, it doesn't meet your plans, you reject it.
Adrian, but, I mean, when you're talking about the maintenance costs, they are what they are because they're in the ground, right? I mean, they're there. So regardless of what happens, that's a static number. The costs are what they are. How many houses are being serviced on the peninsula right now? When you say we could double capacity, I guess that means we could double the existing homes right now and still have capacity. So, Jerry?
Well, it's not quite that.
All right, well, just for a layman's approach, let me get an idea of what the number is of the houses that are being serviced right now. We have no idea how many houses we're serving. All right, so I mean, we
So
could
this
say,
area
we couldn't,
serves McLean, Lake Point, Reflection Point.
Again, this has nothing to do with new development.
okay, well, I guess,
Right now, you annex in parcel without any sewage.
okay, I understand what we're saying on paper, but what I'm saying is, okay, if we're, have X amount of houses right now, and we're at half capacity,
It's not given, it's not
okay,
the state will only allow us to use new rates per resident, for new.
I guess what I'm driving at is, and maybe I don't understand or I'm not stating it correctly, if we have 2,000 houses now and we're at half capacity, just for numbers, we jump to 4,000 houses at some point, then we're at capacity, then are we in a position to say, you know what, we've got to do something about this? I mean, I don't know how many houses are out there right now, but it's a pretty sure bet that that peninsula is going to develop pretty rapidly. And when we've got houses this far apart, there's going to be a lot of houses.
There aren't that many apartments in the whole river and property. That might be 400 houses total.
So this is the southern portion of the peninsula and the New Hope Peninsula that's in the city limits. Now, McLean is already, their capacity is already part of, it's already baked into the cake. This will allow for Laurel River, which the council's already annexed and zoned and approved a plan for, but that plan is subject to wastewater capacity. So I'm sorry, the Pitman property, the Southport property, that gets wastewater treatment in a different location. The central part of the peninsula, say, Henry Chapel, we have a plan for that, and that will get treated. It doesn't have to go out into South Point Road. There's a plan for whenever Henry Chapel Road comes to us, that would get served through their properties up to Bellwood and Bowen to the wastewater treatment plant. The Southport side of the peninsula is treated more directly. This is just for the properties on the southern end. So Reflection Point, Morgan's Branch, Lake Point, McLean are all being served in this area. And they're all their wastewater treatment capacity has already been allocated. This would allow for World River, Lakeview Farms, which is outside the city limits, so there's a couple of decision points you would have to make on that. And then, I don't know that there's many other large parcels down there that would. So this would not, for example, this would not double the number of homes in the peninsula. This wouldn't, it's not going to be a huge increase. Now, for the people next door to it, you're going to hear all the same things that you hear anytime we have a development proposal. But Chuck, you raised your hand. Did I say something wrong about operations, or can you expand?
Clarify something, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not going to change, the allocation to what's out there in there already. For the development of the establish, it's not going to change their allocation. Their allocation is going to be 120 gallons per bedroom. What it's going to do is if we have any extra capacity down there whatsoever, it can be rated at 60 gallons per bedroom per day, instead of 120. And that 120 is antiquated. I don't know if any of us, unless we can find an antique dealer that will sell us the fixtures, we can find the fixtures anymore that would allow the flow that we saw in the 60s and 70s, or even in the 80s when it started changing. It's just going to allow you to do that. So it would be the allocation, the new allocation, Gary, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the new allocation will only apply to anything going forward once they approve it.
In this finite area.
Yes.
Yes.
That's reasonable, too.
And what it does, guys, is...
Well, I'm sorry. For any new development,
Yeah, it does.
citywide would be subject to the new standard, correct? What,
Yeah.
the finite area is what we're looking at right now, but this would apply to any undeveloped property anywhere in town. That hasn't been, that doesn't already have a wastewater treatment permit.
But do those areas, I mean, this is being done because of their, are we going to have the same problems with capacity in these other areas that we're having now?
Yes and no. And what we will do in the south is we'll look at the current usage of capacity. Say we get this much capacity. Not go back and recalculate all the houses and everything. We'll just look at how much pump stations are pumping on average. We know that right now that's more than 40 to 50.
Let me ask you, why did we go to half capacity? I mean, did we consider going to 80 or 100, or did we just decide?
Because the numbers quite frankly, go down, 50, and then the remainder, they're below calculated based on water use. They're way with.
And how long is that data? I mean, I'm looking at trends. Okay, so water usage may be trending down. I mean, are we concerned ever that water usage may trend up?
We've been doing this for a year, collecting data, 2 years. I've got Jerry's big book. I'll let you review his numbers. I mean, we're comfortable, and part of the reason it's taken so long is we would have blips in the, where we had in the pump station, we had blips in water usage. You could see this nice trend line. Then you'd have a big blip for whatever reason we had to run things and.
Very well,
Thank you. So we had to get good, consistent data without these blips, because you didn't want to have to explain too many blips. So that's one reason why it's taken us this long, because we had to get good, consistent data. But I'd be glad to share the
Does the data include more recently? Because I would imagine with more people being home and stuff, and the wastewater treatment. Okay.
Hey, Adrian, you need a motion to promote
To designate me as the authorized person to file the application.
I'll make a motion to designate you to file the permit.
All right. Was there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
You need to ask for the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Opposed.
You opposed, okay. All right.
State law that has
What'd you read?
has a provision.
What?
Oh,
All right. Okay, so I'm sorry, what was the vote? 4-1, okay, thank you.
4-1. Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is the committees.
Yes, you have the draft minutes of the Tourism Authority, the Parks and Rec Citizen Advisory Board, the Main Street Advisory Board, the Downtown Belmont Development Association Board, the Planning and Zoning Board from their meetings throughout the month of August. So those are just there for your benefit so that you know what your citizen boards are doing, since some of their items come to you for consideration. For the manager's report, I know it's late, so I'll be brief. We're finally in event season, very limited, but we do have some special events coming up. The Main Street program has been working with a community theater to put on a play this weekend called Barnum. You may have seen some folks staging things in Stowe Park. So that'll be Friday the 11th and Saturday the 12th in Stowe Park. As we mentioned earlier, capacity is limited to 50 spectators, so contact Phil if you're interested in seeing that play. That Thursday night Cox concert, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, September 17th and 24th, and then October 1st and 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. in Stowe Park. Again, as of now, capacity is limited to 50 spectators. And then as a follow-up to your CIP workshop, I did sign the purchase agreement today for a new bus for the recreation center. That's a 25-passenger bus. It's ADA compliant with 2 ADA seats. The cost has actually dropped down from what we presented to you at the CIP workshop. So we've got it for $89,900 instead of $99,900. But again, we recently sold land for $75,000 in downtown. So if you apply to that, that's a net cost of $14,900. So that we should take possession of that shortly, and then we'll get it wrapped in our new logo, and then park it. And when we're able to go on trips, we will go on trips with that and the current bus. And we will make sure that both buses are being driven, even if we can't go on trips, because we don't want them to sit there and deteriorate.
Are you going to rewrap the old bus?
We can't.
You can.
It needs a little update on the outside. Yeah, I'd like to do that. As I mentioned in the last couple email reports to you, the City Work Center is basically finished. There's a form called substantial completion that we have been trying to get our contractor to fill out. Thus far, he has not filled it out. His clock of $500 a day per day liquidated damages is still running. As soon as he fills that form out, we can do a final inspection walkthrough. He claims that he received his certificate of occupancy from the county last week. I'm hoping to get a copy of that at some point. then we can occupy that building. Some furniture has arrived, I think more is coming later this week, and so throughout the month of September, and then we can occupy that building. And then, if you'll recall, earlier in the, I think it's in late spring, early summer, you approved a contract to build a section of sidewalk on South Point Road between South Point Village and the high school. That has been completed. The rest of the sidewalk on that commercial development has been completed, and the contractor for the middle school is currently building the sidewalk on that middle school frontage. So we will soon have sidewalks from this, basically Bowen Drive or Bellwood Drive all the way up to South Point High School on the west side of South Point Road. So our sidewalk network is slowly improving, but that was filling in a gap that was not ever going to get filled except for us. So that one is complete. And then the Gaither Road satellite utility building that you approved earlier in the year has been completed, and we do have the CO on that, and we have a copy of the CO for that. And then I don't have this on the slide, but several of our transportation improvement projects did make the cut on Spot 6.0 to at least submit to the state, including the widening of South Point Road and some other smaller projects. So as that makes its way through this Spot 6.0 ranking, we'll certainly provide feedback to or input to Councilman Turner, who is our MPO representative and the chair of the MPO. So hopefully you can give us some good news, I think, in February, March, April, May timeline of 2021, so we can get some of these projects funded for 10 years from now and built 20 years from now, for things that should have been done 20 years ago. But such is the system that we have. So we did submit, and this is a new process that we use, getting input from the Transportation Committee last year, and the council went on record supporting these projects. So I think that certainly helped. And we have good data now from our TIAs, in a way to present. So we are working on those transportation issues as well. That's all that I have on the manager's report.
Thank you, Adrian. All right, other business. We'll start out with Mark.
I'm just glad our playgrounds are open. I had one constituent in particular who kept asking me about that, so happy to see that. That's all I have.
Martha?
I have several items, mostly code enforcement. We could get an update next month on the Poplar Street house. It's in the first block because it's continuing to deteriorate. And also an update on what happened with the property that we demolished on South Point Road as far as removing and all that kind of information that we will find out next month. Starbucks has not planted what they were told to plant to cover that whole facade, so we need to check on that. On Riverside Flats, they mowed half of what they're supposed to mow. It's still dangerous, so we need to address that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Jim? I don't have anything.
I have, I guess, a couple things. Yeah, I don't know if it's code enforcement or if it's more of your jurisdiction, but in terms of that property in South Central, I saw a Lineberger sign, so I don't know if the property's been sold, in which case the lien would perhaps paid off and you can have some money or something, but.
Well, that's why
He was the contractor that did the demolition,
Oh, I didn't know that.
and then he used a different name,
I see.
or maybe he has a different company, but did we get that? We have a form that we're using, right? Yes, so we have, so apparently the county requires a form from us to file the lien at the clerk of court or the register of deeds office, and Arthur sent that to me, so that's in my list to review. But whether it's sold or, we like to get it if it's sold, but if not, then it's when the taxes are paid. So, yes, so there is a process in place for that.
Okay. And while we're on code enforcement updates, I suppose we should get another update on the card reader facility in Wilkinson. I ran into a friend of the owner a few weeks ago at a homeowner's thing, and he is, oh yeah, he's on it, so let's make sure that he's on it and getting things up to snuff there. I don't know if you were going to update us on North Belmont, or is that something we need to do in
I'll take that.
Okay. And then, we've had some suggestions about al fresco dining perhaps being done in the fall when things, I guess it is close to fall now, but maybe when things cool off, as it was quite popular during the spring and summer. So I'm sure that it's exciting news for Phil.
Can I respond real quick? So we reached out to the participating restaurants, provided us some feedback on their numbers. So we're reflecting that, and we reached out to David to kind of see what normally it costs us, try to compare, just to see, compare the overall benefit. So we have had a lot of restaurants, even our retail business, who said, they're always would like to do a regular basis.
Yep.
Yeah, another status update. When we met, I guess it was last, I can't remember, we've been meeting a lot lately. The one, Martha asked the question to Ronnie Worley to get us an update of the $1 million in county money that for road improvements at the middle school. Has he responded?
Not to me.
No, he hasn't responded.
Not to me, unless he emailed me, I can send you that one.
All right, maybe we can press him for an answer, because that's, if there's money available, I mean, the answer's right there for us. You know, when Shelley was giving her presentation about tree canopy, I remember something we talked about at our last meeting, and it was a drone for planning and zoning, and the need for a quality drone so that they could get an accurate, I guess, grid view or view of the parcel, which would then help aid them in determining the percentage of tree canopy or what needed to be saved. In talking to Shelley, I guess in round numbers, that was like a $2,000 purchase. You know, I would like to suggest that we go ahead at some point and make that purchase for them and get them trained on it, because development's going to pick back up again, and if that's going to be a good tool to assist in this new tree management program, then I don't think that's a huge investment to make. And if it's going to do what they say it's going to do and produce those results, $2,000 is not a lot to invest in that. If we're, you know, serious about the tree canopy. I would say nice work on the bus. You guys seem to have gotten a really good deal on that. I don't know how you found that in Tennessee, but
David.
David, good work. No, that's a nice job. And I was asking you, the CO on the rec center, we don't have a certificate of occupancy on the Public Works building. He's saying that one was issued, but we don't know that it was.
The general contractor emailed me and said that last, I believe, Tuesday, he received a certificate of occupancy from Gaston County Building Inspections. I haven't seen a copy of it. I don't have any reason to doubt him. Chuck sent me a copy of it the day he got his. I was surprised I didn't get it.
It's ready to occupy?
We have one.
Gave the road.
Oh,
So we're getting our financing on the City Works Center from USDA. USDA says you can't occupy, he said even if you get the CO, you can't occupy the building until you go through the substantial completion process, which requires the contractor to fill out the paperwork, submit it to the architect. Architect then agrees or disagrees with it. All parties involved walk the site, and we agree on what is left to be completed or what needs to be repaired. It's something that could take us a day, and we've been waiting for probably 3 weeks.
Do you think that he's slow walking the process because of, is it liquidated damages?
He even asked again last week, are you really going to charge liquidated damages? And I made it very clear that we will. And every day costs him $500.
Anything in his interest to do it more
Yes.
quickly.
And I looked at the form, which is, it's in this book. And it would take the contractor an hour to fill it out, maybe less. He had good notes from his project superintendent. We told him about it in a meeting in June and in July, and an email on the 21st of August, and then again last Tuesday. So it's cost him $2,500 not to fill that form out yet.
And he's keeping us from occupying the building.
Yes. So I've got a conference call with both our architect and the USDA, both our local rep and the state architect on Thursday morning to figure out how do we, because our contractor's holding us up from occupying the building. And I can't make him fill out the form. Well, and it says that the owner, which is the city, the owner's only relief from delays is liquidated damages. And getting off topic a little bit, if he signs the most recent change orders for work he's already completed, then his contract extends through April 7th, which puts him at about $77,000 in liquidated damages. He's thus far refused to sign the change orders, which keeps his contract date at January 26th, which puts him at about $113,000 in liquidated damages.
I mean, this doesn't make any sense. Is there any kind of, I mean, is there some strategy on his part that, I mean, is there some sort of legal remedy that we have to force his hand at all?
He has threatened litigation twice, which is why I'm very careful in responding to him. I'm assuming that he thinks we're either just not going to charge liquidated damages, or that he can go to arbitration and the mediator somehow reduce it. None of which makes any sense because the clock ticks and it's $500 every single day that he delays it.
Doesn't seem to make any sense.
It makes no sense. And
Obviously,
it's very frustrating.
He's obviously thinking something, but doesn't make any sense on this side.
Yes. I will say that the water treatment plant project has gone very smoothly. And if you remember, our contractor for the CityWorks project was the low bidder on the water treatment plant project. And this was a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, but months ago before this latest stuff. And we wanted to pull back and we said, let's go with the other contractor, even though it was more expensive, but because their references checked out and Chuck went to visit some of their other projects and everything was good. And it has been a seamless project. And I'm really jealous of Chuck and his experience on his project versus ours on this project.
If he were to file litigation, can he keep us out of that building indefinitely till it's resolved? I mean, I'm wondering, I'm trying to figure out his strategies. Maybe he figures the longer he keeps us out of the building, the more eager we are to go ahead and just say, the heck with it, let's just, we need to get in the building.
So, I mean, that could be a strategy, but, and I'll know more Thursday. The great news is we don't have to be in that building because we're working remote and we're working at City Hall and the planning department and the Ford Center. We need to get in the building for all the reasons we talked about for a long time, and we need the community room and we need to have good office space. But we're managing without it. So it's not like this is a church construction project and we got to get in by Easter Sunday, or this is a new school and we've got to get in there in the summer so that we can put in all the classroom equipment to be open by the first day of school. So all the pressure is on the contractor to finish. We have all the leverage. We have the building, we have the money, and we have the bond. So that's something I've been very hesitant to do, to pull the performance bond, because then that does get very litigious. Not going to reflect well on the contractor, but that's probably the next step. If he's just refusing to do things that literally would take him an hour to do. We call the bonding company, explain what's happened, we pull his bond, and have the bonding company come in to do little piddly work that needs to get fixed. I mean, we're like on the 1 yard line on this, and we just, I mean, it's been very frustrating. And I'm trying to be pleasant because this is being recorded.
Ron?
I was just going to say, I don't think we do briefed a whole lot on that Bell Web project, so we might want to touch base on that at one of our workshops, since I guess they submitted a plan since then. Yeah, I thought we were going to have time to talk about it before they submitted.
They submitted a plan. Did their web multi-group, they submitted a sketch plan, right?
They have not resubmitted the revised plan.
Just back to some of the things we talked about in the retreat. I'd rather get my feedback in now versus the night.
Well, you do have a workshop tomorrow afternoon on a separate project that when that presentation's finished, you can then talk about this.
I still haven't seen it, I thought we were gonna make it on a trip down there.
We do need to schedule a, make a trip.
Yeah. And I will, but I thought we were
Right.
gonna.
No, we will.
Make a motion to adjourn?
No, we gotta go into
Well, we gotta
closed
go
session.
into closed session.
Good try. I move we go into closed session to do the performance evaluation of the city manager and to discuss pending litigation.
Yes.
All right, do I hear a second? Got a second, all in favor, say aye. Closed session.
Oh, do we?